Hello and welcome. I'm Anne Nwawado. Tonight, Department of State Services vow to comply with Kaduna State High Court order granting Shiites leader Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaky leave to seek for medical attention in India. Police arrest and disperse revolution now protesters in Lagos and Osun State despite boycott by Nigerians in other states across the country. President Muhammadu Buhari commends Nigerians for ignoring nationwide protest, says protest boycott is victory for democracy. And U.S. President Donald Trump commends hatred and white supremacy following mass shootings that left 31 people dead in Texas and Ohio.
On business news tonight, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation renews target to achieve crude oil reserves of 40 billion barrels by the year 2020.
And on sports news tonight, England football international Harry Maguire joins Manchester United Football Club from Leicester City for a world record £80 million.
And from Abuja, court grants Economic and Financial Crimes Commission's request to freeze Bauchi State Government's account valued at 11.5 billion naira pending completion of investigations.
Once again, welcome. Barely 2 weeks after the federal government secured a federal high court injunction prescribing the activities of Islamic movement in Nigeria and declaring the group as terrorist, another high court today granted the plea of their leader, Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaky, and his wife, Zinat, to seek medical attention abroad. The court order comes after several months of protest and clashes between the Shiites and the police since his incarceration in 2015. Today, the court held that the IMN leader and his wife Zinat will be accompanied to India by officials of the Kaduna State government, but did not give any time frame regarding their stay there, and no date has been fixed for the trip.
The ruling came up today, and the Honorable Court, my Lord Justice Darius, graciously agreed with Mr. Femi Falana, SN, and the various medical reports that were attached to the applications. There were 8 different medical reports that showed clearly that the applicants are in dire need of urgent medical treatment abroad. And the court agreed that the applicants, Malam and his wife, should be allowed that immediate international medical treatments that were sought for, and that it should be immediate but with the supervision of the states.
The court has ruled. It has had us. It has had the arguments of counsel, and it has ruled. We are bound by the court ruling of this honorable court. All the parties are bound by the ruling of the court. The court said when he was effectively discharged by the hospital that he referred to Medenta Hospital in India. So as soon as he's discharged from the hospital, he returns to the country to continue his trial.
Meanwhile, the Department of State Services, the DSS, says it is ready to comply with the court ruling granting Ibrahim El-Zakzaky and his wife leave to travel to seek medical attention. The DSS says in a statement by its spokesman Peter Afunaya that it is liaising with relevant stakeholders to ensure compliance with the court order. The Secret Service maintains that conformity with the order is in line with their vowed commitment to the rule of law, which is inherent in a democracy. The DSS has held Sheikh El-Zakzaky and his wife in custody since 2015. The widely publicized Revolution Now protest, which was planned to hold nationwide today, may have suffered a huge setback as many Nigerians ignored the protest across states, except for places like Abuja, Lagos and Osun, where a few members of the group gathered to carry on with the plan. In Lagos, for example, there was a mild drama as some members of the group were dispersed with tear gas by riot police officers. A similar incident happened in Osun State, where the protesters were dispersed also with tear gas. The publisher of online news medium Sahara Reporters and presidential candidate of the African Action Congress in the 2019 presidential election, Omoyele Sowore, had made a call for the nationwide revolution protest against insecurity and other vices in Nigeria. Channels Television captured the protests in Lagos, Ogun, Kwara, and Edo states.
As early as 7 a.m., members of the Revolution Now group converge on the National Stadium in Lagos to kick off the protest march over the current security situation in the country and other issues they feel is not right. But they were dispersed by security officials. Some Revolution Now protesters arrested by the police.
They took my phone away! Ask them! They have stolen my phone! I know him! He's a journalist!
And then drama, as this man who claims to be a journalist is taken away by the police for allegedly failing to show any form of identification.
Take him there. Open that door.
The conveners, a coalition of different civil society organizations, are vowing to regroup despite the resistance they faced on day one.
This agitation was formalized today, officially, that as from today, the agitation against this crime God leadership will be campaigned against, and millions of people will join this movement, whether they like it or not.
The civil society have no obligation to seek any permit in the conduct of any protest. We are lawful citizens. We have only called for a peaceful demonstration, and it has been peaceful so far.
In neighboring Ogun State, a combined team of security operatives staged a show of force around major streets of Abeokuta, the state capital, warning protesters against any unlawful gathering.
The security agencies in Ogun State, we are on ground and we are fully ready for any form of violent protest anybody might want to embark on.
It's a similar story in Kwara State, where there's heavy security presence at the stadium complex in Ilorin, the state capital. Here, some athletes are stranded as sporting activities are suspended.
They are claiming to go on revolution, and in order not to allow anything to truncate the peace that we are enjoying in Kwara State, we are doing that as a proactive mayor to prevent any breakdown of law and order.
Elsewhere, men in uniform are stationed around the Nigeria Observer Airport Road in Benin City, the Edo State capital. There are no signs of the protesters here. But it's only day one of the Revolution Now protests, which conveners believe is only just gathering momentum, vowing to continue what they say is a peaceful protest.
Meanwhile, in the nation's capital, Abuja, the planned protest did not hold at the Unity Fountain as scheduled. Rather, a handful of protesters who defied the rain converged on the National Human Rights Commission headquarters in Abuja to submit what they termed a petition.
Wet Monday morning in the Federal Capital Territory. With the planned Revolution March scheduled for 10 a.m., we arrived at the Unity Fountain, venue of the planned protest earlier, despite the rain, awaiting the arrival of the protesters. In plain sight are policemen, although in scanty numbers. At about 10:35 a.m., two buses arrive and pull over just beside the Unity Fountain. The police then approach the buses, and moments later, the buses leave. As they pull off, it is obvious that they are filled with women and youth, although it's not clear if they are protesters or counter-protesters. After 2 hours of no action at the Unity Fountain, a few of the protesters, led by activist Dari Ario, gather at the National Human Rights Commission to register their complaints.
The reason why we've decided to come to the National Human Rights Commission is simply because of the activity of the current administration. We have also, just like they do intelligence gathering, we also have intelligence that compromised Nigerians have been paid to attack us at the Unity Fountain or any location we chose, to protest.
The protest with the hashtag #RevolutionNow comes days after the arrest of Mr. Omoyele Sowore by the Department of State Services over his statements calling for a revolution in the country against the ruling elite. They insist that the authorities have no right to arrest Mr. Omoyele Sowore, and that's why they are here to submit their petition. And we'll look to see how this will play out, if the number of these protesters will increase in the days ahead, or if that will not happen at all.
And staying with the Revolution Now protest, the presidency has been speaking on the outcome of today's planned demonstration. The presidential spokesman, Garba Shehu, in a statement, says that while a few persons joined the protest on personal grounds, many others chose to ignore the call to join the protest. In his words, I quote, "Millions of Nigerians went about their businesses, work, seeking employment, attending school or college, and caring for their families. By doing so, the millions defended our country's hard-won democratic rights by ignoring calls on social media to join a phantom resolution." End of quote. According to Mr. Shehu, the president is humbled by the support not for himself or the ruling party, but for the democratic values of modern-day Nigeria through the wisdom of those millions of citizens who prefer to defend democracy and decided not to undermine an elected government. Away from the revolution protest now, the Middle Belt Forum is asking the federal government to prescribe Fulani herdsmen whom they accuse of committing genocide against the people. The group, comprising states in the north-central region, made the demand at a forum in the nation's capital, Abuja.
Meti Allah should have been proscribed as a trade union and declared terrorists in line with the international assessment and categorization. Good governance does not exist without the rule of law. If you remember, international organs, I think, categorized the Fulani herdsmen as the fourth most deadly terrorist group in the world. Yet, our country see them as friends rather than as enemies of state. We would and should keep a close eye on the reintroduction of the Inland Waterways Bill by the presidency in this 9th National Assembly. The bill seeks to take away all rivers, their banks to some kilometers, from state control to federal control, and therefore take away ancestral lands for the exclusive use of the federal government. Your guess is as good as mine on what would happen next. Our National Assembly members must resist and reject the passage of that bill.
Still talking security matters, Ogun State Governor Mr. Dapo Abiodun today read the Riot Act to landlords and property owners who harbor criminals in the state, warning that the state government will ensure that their property will be seized and demolished and the owner persecuted. The governor made the threat today in Abeokuta, the state capital, during a press briefing on the state of security in Ogun. It says the government will not abdicate its constitutional responsibility of providing adequate protection for residents and businesses in Ogun State.
To the Chief of Staff only yesterday.
Let me state in clear terms that no part of Ogun State will be a safe haven for criminals and criminality in whatever form. Whether on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Shagamu-Benin or Expressway, Abeokuta-Sango-Lagos Expressway, or even our township roads or interstate roads, we shall smoke them out. We shall arrest them. We shall hand them over to the swift hands of justice. For people with legitimate businesses, let me assure you, the Ogun State will continue to be a paradise. But for people with criminal tendencies, hell for you will be a child's play. In doing this, all of us who have decided to make Ogun State our dear home will have to cooperate and collaborate and synergize with our law enforcement agencies.
In part 2, after the break, Enugu State government to engage 1,700 forest guards to combat crime in the state. Please stay with us.